a Christian
Wait,
and
hold on.
he said,
Did you say propose or did you say suppose? I'm sorry to interrupt.
suppose,
Okay, say it one more time.
suppose. You know what? Forget suppose.
No,
There
no, no,
is a
Abdo, it's
Christian.
because your mic is really low. So like literally, I turned you all the way up.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. There is a Christian that denies inherent sin. Is he a heretic or is he not?
What do you mean inherent sin? Or
Just
is
answer
that
the
what he just
damn
said
question.
and then so you're
It's
trying
not
to
a gotcha
prove him?
question. I'm
No, no,
genuinely
I know.
curious.
Yeah.
Okay, is it like, do you want me to, the concept that we are all born sinners because of Adam and Eve?
Okay, so inherent sin in terms of original sin, right?
Sure.
Okay.
Okay, what's the answer? Yes or no? Is he a heretic?
So if he believes that there is original sin, no, he's not a heretic. But if
Right.
he's denying that we have sin because of original sin, then yeah, he could be a heretic. Am I hearing this
Good.
correctly?
Good, because I met somebody that said, I don't believe in all of that, but I'm a Christian.
So he's a
Thank you
Christian,
for
but he
clearing that
doesn't
up.
believe in original sin. Yeah, then he's not a
Yes,
Christian.
yes. Good. Thank you for answering. Islam is like low-key based, by the way. Do you have a question to ask about Islam before
Hold
I leave?
Not really.
on. There is Allah all good?
Define all good.
Did Allah create evil?
Allah create evil. Evil is the absence of God. Is that like
Perfect.
I'm I feel
See,
like I
like
could find Muslims debating on that. I'll find that.
okay, like
yeah, yeah.
he
So Abdo, that wasn't a trick question. So, we were
mm,
having this
Yeah.
conversation earlier between theism
Hmm.
and whether, being a Christian means
I
you're a
think that
theist
guy
and all
was
this
a
stuff.
Muslim.
So this is a perfect example. Abdo is a Muslim, right, Supreme? But when you asked
Yeah.
him whether evil actually exists or God created evil, he's giving you a theist explanation, right? Which is that no, evil is just the absence of good, right? So
Right, yeah.
right, right. And then that's what I mean. Is like even a Muslim can hold to certain theist principles. You get what I'm saying?
See,
We just
like
don't share the same divine revelation.
I can think of two Muslims now that like would disagree. So now I want to hear like Muslims debate that.
sure. I'm sure somebody might have an alternative position. I haven't
No,
looked at all of
we
them, but
No, that's
is
great.
none of
Raptor
them.
Muslim?
You're perfect.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
We're
So
aligned on a lot of
evil,
things. We just
evil,
disagree on the
evil.
scriptures.
Yeah, so evil is just a byproduct of free will, and it's a result of absence of God, you can say. That's it.
Now here's the thing. Like I'll ask or both of you. Can God hate?
Yes.
Yeah, you can. He can be
Okay,
God
angry.
okay,
hates.
If God
God
can
hates
favor,
out
then
of.
he can also disfavor.
okay.
Yes, God hates.
Yeah.
Does God love all of creation?
Yes. Oh, no, I'm
Does
sorry.
God
You're
love
asking
all
him.
of?
I'm sorry. I just keep butting in.
I'm
Does
asking. Yeah, I mean, yeah, two
uh,
Muslims.
does God love all of creation? He loves
Yeah,
all of the. No, there are some creations that God does not like.
there we go.
The
There's a
the wicked,
disagreement.
the wicked. God does not like the wicked. Pretty simple. God
Okay.
hates them. But that also
Yeah,
doesn't mean. But God is still merciful. He will accept the repentance, doesn't matter what,
so
etc.
Allah doesn't. Allah does not love
No,
Satan. Uh,
no,
Asma,
does
that is a
not love.
disagreement. Doesn't God love Satan still?
No.
Hmm?
If Satan
Doesn't
wants
God
to
love
repent,
Satan?
look, if
Um,
Satan wants to
it
repent, look,
depends on
if
what
Satan wants to,
sense you
he
mean
will.
love. So if you understand like love as like just being grace or allowance, because everything that exists is good, right? So the fact that Satan exists is good, right? And how can we say that even God allowing Satan to exist is good? Because there could be a greater good that Satan is serving, right? And that is consistent with Catholic teaching and demonology. Like that even the demons exist because God allows it.
Right.
Yeah. So there's a
Hmm.
so this is in classical Thomistic terms, this is known as prevenient grace, right? Versus effective grace. So God prevenience grace,
Yes,
right?
I see.
In secondary causes and allowing for secondary causation allows, principles of evil to exist, right? It doesn't mean that he's necessarily the cause of that evil though. It happens as a
Mm.
matter of secondary causes. So in the first cause is he allows his prevenient grace allows everything that does exist to exist, right? And then those things that are a result of that primary cause can make by their own will cause upon that world and each other. Those are secondary causes. Does that make sense? So like when
Yeah.
an astro
I
so rocks are put in motion, one rock hits another rock in space, right? The sec the cause that happens when the rock that was first put in motion hits another rock that was also put in motion, when they collide, that's secondary causation.
all right.
Wouldn't that make all the like? So God is like, how do I say this? English is hard.
So
That would
Satan
make
is like an
God silly.
asteroid, right? That's put into motion, right? Satan,
Mm-hmm.
like that asteroid, right, hits another rock or another, and let's say like it leads to evil outcomes, right? So that evil isn't caused by God himself. It's caused by the secondary actions
Okay, let's say,
of that asteroid.
we're in the kitchen. There's three people in the kitchen, me, you, and Supreme Potato, right? You're holding a knife, cutting some vegetables. Supreme is sitting next to you, and I'm on the other side. I pushed you as hard as possible
Hmm.
while you're holding that knife, and you accidentally like stabbed Supreme in the neck. Would that make me responsible for that, what's it called? Murder or killing?
So yeah, okay, I'm gonna grant you that you're trying to make an analogy out of this case, okay?
I am.
Right. So, but the strength of this analogy is going to rely on the premise in that case, right? So, the
Okay.
premise, right, has to be clarified. Are you assuming that one had the intention when you pushed that it would push, that when you pushed me into Supreme, that it would cause harm to Supreme?
Okay.
If
I had
that
knowledge.
intention if
Okay.
that intention is established, then yes, you could be held responsible, right? And we know this from,
Okay.
right. So right, the reason why the analogy is weak to address like as an analogy for the difference between primary and secondary causes is because we have to clarify intentionality, right?
Right. I had knowledge before pushing you. I had knowledge of all of the outcomes of me pushing you.
Yeah, but at the
I
same
knew that
time, it would have to, do with intent, right? So, like in the court of law, right? Like the prosecution is going to try to build a case around the
yeah,
fact that
I'm going towards that.
you knew that it was going to lead to these outcomes. How else could you have not known unless you're literally stupid? In which your defense is going to be based on incompetence or
Sure.
insanity, right? Right, that you had no way of being responsible for even knowing what was going to happen, right? But if you claim that you are not guilty, your claim is that your intention wasn't to cause harm, right? So that's why the analogy, you get what I mean? So in the case that you're saying that if you claim that you didn't hold that intention, then and I couldn't prove
Sure. Sure.
that you had any motive outside of that, and I wasn't able to convince the jury that your motive was any more malicious than that, then you could still be held accountable for the outcomes, and that's why there's different degrees of murder, right, or harm, right? There's first degree, second degree, third degree, right? You can still be held accountable even if you're incompetent.
Good. But again, I was trying to make the case that I am an
But
all-knowing being.
yeah,
Oh,
yeah, yeah.
no, wait,
But
wait.
that doesn't that
Let me
doesn't
finish here.
apply to
Yeah,
the distinction between
sure, sure.
first and
Let me
second
just finish
causes
here.
because God's intention is always good, right? That's the difference.
Sure.
The
Sure,
first
sure,
cause
sure.
is always going
I'm
to be
trying
the
to build
good
you like
cause.
in your court analogy. In your
Yeah.
court analogy, you said the two exceptions are incompetence or you being insane, right? I believe.
You're right, right, but that
I
that
can-
that comes before. I mean, that's a
Yeah,
determination
yeah,
about um the first premise, right? That comes like
Okay,
literally
like, look,
before the trial
ignore,
is
ignore that.
trial
Look, I'm not
happens.
trying to make ignore that I'm trying to make an analogy here. I'm pushing you. I know full well that when I push you, I know all of the outcomes. You're either going
Uh-huh.
to slice Supreme's neck or not. And I am in this hypothetical scenario, a person with infinite knowledge, and I know that when I push you, his neck will be sliced. Am I responsible for that guy's death?
No,
No. Why?
because again, we have to establish motive.
My motive, like, nobody can comprehend my motive. I just did it.
So, are you pleading guilty or not guilty? Only you know
I
this,
am
right?
not,
Only you
I
would know
am not
this,
pleading.
right?
In a
So,
court
so
of law, in a traditional court of law, you don't
yeah,
ask
yeah, yeah,
the
yeah.
guy.
But there's no way. There's no, again, there's no way to reason, right, to what the motive was. So
Why do you
if
need the
you
motive? Like, why do
there's
you
no
need the
there,
motive
right.
behind
So
me
so that's why
massacring
we have
people?
an adversarial justice system, right? So it's gonna the way in which the prosecution is going to build their case against you is dependent on the way you plead, because only you can admit to the motive, right? But if you
Of
choose
course, I'm going.
if you choose to say, well, I'm not guilty, right? Then what is the prosecution going to do? They're going to try to prove that, you know, they're going to already assume that you knew what would happen, and now all they have to do is prove motive, and then they could get you on a higher conviction, right? They can get you on first degree murder instead of second degree murder, or so on and so forth. That not only did you know, but it was premeditated. So then that's first degree
Sure,
murder.
I'm all knowing. So look, I'm all knowing. So it's absolutely
Yeah.
premeditated, right?
Be,
I'm
yeah.
like,
So
my take
because
here.
we can't
Maybe you're
because
arguing for the American justice system,
no,
but I'm like,
I'm not
I'm
arguing
not a
for the
sympathetic
American
with that.
justice system. I'm just trying to
Yeah.
say that I'm just trying to point out why this analogy is a weak analogy, because
I find it very
it
good.
doesn't
Not,
sufficiently address the distinction between primary and secondary causation.
it, uh,
Like if
okay.
even if we're able to draw a conclusion based on your analogy, it still is not going to be able to sufficiently address that distinction between primary and secondary causation. So it would be a form of question begging if we were to assume that we could draw a conclusion about primary or secondary causation just because we can, demonstrate it through an analogy. Does that make sense?
But this, like, me
Like
pushing you
everybody
and saying
realizes that
something, this is
analogies,
literally
aren't
the second
perfectly
causation.
identical,
Like,
right, to the thing in that is
the
being compared
analogy
to.
I gave is, look, the analogy I gave is the definition of a second causation versus a first causation. Blah blah blah.
No, it's not.
Like, me pushing,
No,
this
no,
is
no.
the
Now, no, no, no,
me
no,
falling
no. It's
down
not.
is the first
Now
guy.
you're begging the
You're slashing
question.
his neck.
You're
Is the
assuming
second.
that it is, and that's not. That's not the classical formulation of the distinction
What is
between
your
primary and secondary
classical?
causes.
What is?
Have you read St. Thomas?
No.
Then how can you just assume that that's what Christian
You
theists
gave me
mean
his
when
argument.
we're talking about primary versus secondary
You
causes?
explained his. You gave me his arguments at the beginning. Is that clear? You told me your, oh, first, secondary versus first causation. God is not responsible. That's why I gave you this entire analogy in the first place. By the way, I agree. God is absolutely not held to the evil. Period.
That's what I
And
said.
like,
Yep.
but,
Okay,
but I
so I
I
put it
find
in the
the
I put
explanation
it in the
wrong.
side chat. Right, because you're just reviewing the argument, and if we want to push this conversation forward, we're just gonna have to go to a secondary source, okay? And that's what we're gonna do. In the history of
Yeah, just
Christian
keep
thought,
going.
the philosopher Thomas Aquinas refers to God as the primary cause of the being of everything. Aquinas refers to creatures as secondary causes, whose activities reaches particular aspect and depends on divine action. So the analogy that you're drawing is literally from causation caused by secondary, by creatures, right? So even though I'm granting you that analogy, even if we're to do it for
Yeah,
demonstrative purposes, I allowed it because I mean it's a good place where we could talk about motive, right? And intentionality. So that's why I
sure,
was
but
willing
like,
to engage with you,
if you were
right?
if you
And
were
so
like,
long as we're able to, clearly delineate, right, how we're going to distinguish intentionality between humans between that of God, clearly the Christian, or from a theistic point of view, we would say God's intentionality is always good. So his
Sure, but
cause
if
to
you don't
create
get
the
my
world, right?
analogy
Him
now,
being the
it's like, wait
cause
a
to
second.
create the world is always going to be good. But when it comes to the secondary effects, right, that are caused by his creation, that's that's the cause of evil. That's where the cause of evil
Good,
is actually located.
good.
It
I
doesn't
fully
exist in
understood that.
itself.
Can I
It's an
respond now?
effect. It's an effect of the bad actions of the creatures, right? Also known as secondary
Good.
causes. So the bad effects
I
themselves
understood.
that are due to those things that are created out of the first motion, that's evil.
I understood. Can I respond?
Yeah. So that's why
Good.
that is
Oh,
it would be circular for you to try to like, reverse engineer what God's intentionality means by the causation by, of secondary causes. This is circular.
can I respond?
So,
Thank you.
okay.
If you looked at my analogy, sure, you might see me as a normal being, and you dismiss my analogy because of that. But if you focused on my wording, I said I am all knowing. My intentions are beyond comprehension. I'm literally
Right. So you're
putting
God.
myself
You're
in the
God,
position
right?
of
That's
God
what you're saying. You're God.
in this analogy.
Yeah, but then that's the weakness of your analogy. You're not God. So the
An
analogy.
analogy,
Yeah,
dude,
yeah, yeah.
dude, like,
But I mean,
come on,
right.
come
Well, I
on,
mean,
you're smarter than this.
don't you think it's weird? You're saying, well, the analogy, the analogy, is working as an analogy, but I'm just going to change the definitions of the analogy to say that it's God anyways. Do you
No,
see how
I,
underhanded that is? That's like that's a
my
form of question
intentions
begging.
are,
You're basing, right,
look,
the conclusion of, like, you're assuming the
look,
conclusion that it's going to say something about
for the
God just
sake
because you
of
change the
this,
definition of what it means to be a human being.
I do it. Like, let me speak for a
Right?
second.
The fact
For
that
the
one is a human being doesn't, there's nothing about the human being, right, that could be said to be like identical to God, right?
Okay,
But
are you
that's what you're
done?
assuming in your analogy, right? And you're just
My
redefining what
God,
it
dude,
means
you
to be a
don't
human.
stop. Okay, thank you. Okay, for the sake of the analogy, I don't have to have all of the attributes of God. I just
But
need to
that's
have
what you're
the
doing,
attributes
right? When I press you on it, you say,
necessary
well, that's
necessary for getting the message through. An analogy
what mess, right? So
doesn't have
that
to
means
be
that
a
you have a particular
100% similar.
ideological agenda that you're trying to assume within the
No,
premise.
I'm just saying
No, I mean,
the
you
entire
just said
like
you
look,
have a message.
what's the
You have
problem
a
with evil?
message. No, no, no. What you're
A
saying is
simple
that
question.
you literally
What's the
just
problem with
admitted
evil?
you have a message to convey, right? By redefining what it
No.
means to be a human. That's
Dude,
ideology.
what's the problem
You
with
have an
evil? What's the
agenda.
problem with evil?
You're begging the question.
What's
You're
the
making a circular
problem of
argument.
evil?
How do you
What's the
understand the
problem
problem
with
of evil?
evil?
Because I don't have a problem with evil.
The problem of evil, God created everything and evil exists. Why doesn't
So,
God
okay,
stop
okay.
evil?
So when
What does
Supreme
God
asked you
allow evil?
earlier if you believe evil exists, you aren't a classical theist. You do believe
Yes,
that evil
this
exists.
is the problem of evil. I'm trying
No,
to
it
tell
doesn't.
you,
No, it's not.
asking you, how
So
will you deal
it's
with it
not for a
against an
classical
atheist?
theist, there is no problem of
Okay,
evil.
you know
Evil
what? Let's
simply
agree to
doesn't
disagree.
exist. It's just a
Sure, sure, sure.
privation of the
Let's
good.
agree to disagree. Let's agree to disagree.
The only
Let's
thing
agree.
that is defined as existing is what is good. See, he's running away. Supreme.
Yeah, like
Like, do you
I
see how
knew it.
ridiculous?
I knew Muslims thought of an evil
Yeah, all
exists.
right, you're right. At the end of the day, yeah, yeah, they're just larping around.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was crazy, dude.
See, that's why I went through the series of like questions. Or
No, that
I
was
mean,
good. All right,
I
that's
get
fair.
I uh,
Maybe there is something to be said. I mean, maybe one can only be a classical theist if they are a Christian. I don't freaking know anymore.
I mean like I no you have to like God is all good, you know? Oh, he DM'd me saying that like you're autistic.
Yeah, dude, I just create enemies everywhere. Trust me, I'm used to this, dude. It's just like this.
Oh, the Mel was like earlier today. It's like I see you in Abismo's channel a lot, and I I kind of want like like Irish to have like a channel too, like going up, like I don't know. I mean that they have to think about it more. You know what I'm saying? Like I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, that's fine. I mean, you're allowed to. That's what the whole JTC is all about.
Yeah,
You know, like if,
yeah. So I
if
was
you
I
feel
was
like,
telling I'm telling like Mel like Irish should have a channel and like you know how we're like keeping the VC open so we're at the top of the list. You know what I'm saying?
yeah, yeah, yeah. No, I noticed
Like
that too last night. Thank you. Like I started
yeah,
putting it on my
yeah.
phone and just going to sleep, but sometimes it'll kick you out for AFK, but I don't know. Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean like I I didn't put my phone on the charger, so yeah. We need people like in you're in America, right?
Yeah.
We need people like outside our time zone to stay in the VC, you know?